You're trying to find a computer that will sit on a tiny desk, stay cool while you're editing a video, and won't drain your wallet on features you'll never use. That hesitation, will this little box actually keep up with my workload, or am I just buying a fancy paperweight? Is exactly what I felt before I dug into the ASUS NUC 15 Pro. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest question with any mini PC is whether its size is a blessing or a curse. The NUC 15 packs a 7th Gen Intel Core Ultra 7 255H, up to 64 GB of DDR5 RAM and a 1 TB PCIe SSD inside a chassis that's barely bigger than a paperback. For a home office or a cramped studio, that footprint means you can slide it under a monitor or tuck it behind a TV without sacrificing a whole shelf. The trade-off, however, is that you lose the expansion freedom you'd get with a tower. ASUS does promise tool-free upgrades, and in practice swapping the SSD or adding a second module is a quick slide open, but you can't bolt in an extra GPU or a large liquid-cool loop. If you're the kind of user who likes to tinker with multiple graphics cards or massive storage arrays, this is where the NUC draws the line. When I set it up for a typical day of freelance video editing, the first thing I noticed was the connectivity spread. Thunderbolt 4, HDMI 2.1, USB-C, a couple of USB-A ports, Ethernet, and Wi-Fi 7 all sit on the rear panel. That means you can hook up a 4K monitor, a fast external SSD, and a wired network all at once without hunting for a dock. The Intel Arc 140T GPU, while not a workstation-grade card, handles 8K video playback and quad 4K HDR output without choking. In my workflow, cutting 1080p footage in DaVinci Resolve and exporting a 4K final, the render times were roughly on par with a mid-range laptop I used previously, and the GPU-accelerated color grading felt snappy. The catch is the GPU's power envelope. If you push it into heavy 3D rendering or high-resolution gaming, you'll start seeing thermal throttling after about 20 minutes. Thermals are a common pain point for compact builds. ASUS equips the NUC 15 with a dual-fan system that pulls air through a vent on the back. In a quiet office, the fans spin up to about 2,500 revolutions per minute under load, producing a low-grade whine that's audible but not distracting. After an hour of sustained encoding, the chassis temperature settled around 70 C, which is respectable for that size. If you plan to keep the box in a closed cabinet or a very hot room, you'll want to monitor those numbers because the cooling headroom isn't infinite. For most desk-side scenarios, though, the fan noise stays below the threshold where it interferes with a conference call. One of the biggest draws of the NUC line has always been the promise of tool-free upgrades. The memory slots click open without a screwdriver, and the SSD tray slides right out. I swapped the stock 1 TB drive for a 2 TB PCIe 4.0 unit in under 5 minutes, and the BIOS recognized it instantly. The RAM upgrade is equally straightforward, just pop in the DDR5 sticks, and you're set. The downside is that you're still limited to the maximum of 64 GB, and the form factor only supports a single M.2 slot. If your workflow eventually demands a RAID array or a second drive for scratch space, you'll need an external enclosure, which adds cost and takes up USB bandwidth. Now, who should actually consider this machine? If you're a content creator who needs a solid workstation for 1080p or 4K video editing, light 3D modeling, or running multiple VMs, and you value a tidy desk over the raw horsepower of a tower, the NUC 15 is a compelling option. It also fits perfectly for remote workers who need a Windows 11 Pro environment with enterprise-grade security features but don't want to haul a bulky desktop to a co-working space. Small businesses that require a reliable, space-saving computer for digital signage, point-of-sale, or thin client virtualization will find the mix of Wi-Fi 7, Thunderbolt 4, and the easy upgrade path very attractive. Conversely, if you're a gamer who lives for high frame rates at 1440p or 4K, or a professional VFX artist who relies on multiple GPUs and massive RAM pools, the NUC will feel limiting. The same applies to anyone who expects to future-proof for the next 5 years by adding more internal drives or a larger graphics card. the chassis simply won't accommodate that growth. In those cases, a small form factor tower or a high-end laptop with a dedicated GPU will give you more breathing room. Looking at the practical strengths, the NUC 15 shines in its compact design, robust connectivity, and surprisingly capable performance for creative tasks that stay within a single GPU envelope. The DDR5 memory and PCIe 4.0 SSD ensure quick file access and smooth multitasking, which is evident when you have several Adobe apps open side by side. The inclusion of Windows 11 Pro and built-in business security features like TPM 2.0 also means you can deploy